Hello? Hello? Okay. Okay, how are you doing?
I'm alright, mate. You want camera, yeah?
Yeah, yeah, camera.
Alright, give me a second.
Okay, one sec. Let me pop this out. I'm gonna pop this out. Hold on. Okay, right here. Pop out. Capture Discord. And it should show like this. Okay, there we go. And then I'm just gonna click yours. And we're gonna do this, this, this.
Hello, chat.
Okay. So first things first that we got to
I need
talk
to see
about.
your face as well.
So you have an issue with Mr. George Galloway.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, what's your issue?
So I think he's made a few problematic positions over the years, even though he's been very good on some things. On other things, there's a lot to question him about. So I think problematic figure.
So what's why are you anti-Brexit?
Well, because Brexit in the past 10 years has been about being racist, more or less. You're blaming all the problems on immigration from Europe, immigration from outside of Europe, and that's not the right way to be Brexit. Maybe you can be against the EU as they were in the 70s due to economic reasons, due to the institution that is the European Union. But in the past 10 years, it's not been that case. The discussion hasn't been about those things, right? So being Brexit in the past 10 years isn't correct
Okay, so
position.
the UK joined the EU, and since it's joined the EU, something called deindustrialization happened, which means people lost the jobs that used to guarantee them basic dignity and basic livelihood. So it seems to me that we can't discount the thing about the economics because it's just like the Trump situation. Um, I'll admit that racial rhetoric or anti immigrant rhetoric has played a huge part in the cultural expression of this, but is that really what is fundamental about people who wanted Brexit and the sentiment, or even the sentiment of the population of the UK that were pro Brexit? Is it primarily that they're anti immigrant racists, or is it because their fundamental way of life has been undermined since the UK joined the EU and the UK's national industry was completely decimated?
Well, like as someone that lives in the UK, you don't really see the debate consisting anything about even the intentions of the Tory party or the Tory like faction within the party that is pushing for Brexit. You haven't seen like a change to sort of change like the UK economy to that way. Like you don't see that. All you see is talk about cutting down on immigration, making it harder for people to come, which has caused huge problems in the NHS and huge problems in like filling other important sectors in the economy. And you haven't seen any positive change. Now you can say maybe in the long term this will come to our benefit because we're no longer part of the EU. But the Tory party is more popular than ever. And Brexit has only helped strengthen the Tory party. And even rather than just strengthen the Tory party, it's moved every single sort of voter to the right. And that's I can't see how that's a good position to hold.
Well, don't you think that the underlying reason for something can differ from the overt expression? Meaning, just because people aren't debating about this doesn't mean it's not the actual real reason. People some don't know how to directly talk about the real reason because it's so fundamental and obviously so complicated to be able to understand consciously. But that doesn't mean it's not the underlying fundamentally material reason for why the population of the UK is so disposed to anti-immigrant sentiment. My view is that they associate immigration with the transformations that have occurred from a more broader perspective that are fundamentally incompatible with a dignified human life. Um,
That's true. So you're saying that immigration has been used as a scapegoat for other reasons. I
yeah,
agree with
that's
that.
what I think. That's what I think. I think they're harping on immigration because they don't know how to actually articulate their real interests. To me, Jeremy Corbyn got close to articulating those interests in the beginning, right? When he talked about reviving the UK's national and sovereign industry. But obviously, Brexit was the end of his campaign. But I'll just put it like this: the UK's membership in the EU is not compatible with the revival of the UK's national industry. The EU, you know the problems with the institution of the EU. It's not politically accountable. It's completely undemocratic. It has no regard for the sovereignty of the constituent nations within it. And one of the
Yeah,
things that I like to emphasize is it's not even so much whether we like the EU or not. You have to regard something like Brexit actually as an inevitability. The UK people are fed up. The establishment isn't able to contain their discontent because the source of their discontent is not because they're too ignorant or they're too prejudiced. It's because of real underlying material reasons. So, to me, anyone who comes from a left wing, an authentically socialist or left wing position, if they are opposing Brexit, they're basically digging their own grave.
I think. Look, we gotta, like you're saying. Okay, like the EU is incompatible with what we want, and that's correct, and I agree with that. And I did see people on the left that articulated, let's say, a non-racist Brexit movement. And if you want to look up about it, it's called the full Brexit, and that's good, and I agree with that. But what I'm trying to say is, when we're talking about the impact that will have on society, and if you look at where the UK has been going for the past 10 years, you can't say that being pro Brexit in this current environment is what is good, like for people, especially me as an immigrant and as ethnic minority in the UK. I don't see how it's a good position to be in when Britain is just becoming more and more racist. And let's not, even if you'd say that the working class are the people sort of that are proving their discontent with the EU. At the end of the day, it's a very middle class sort of Brexit that we're having. It's all the rich people that are trying to say that we don't want sort of immigrants coming here and taking sort of the jobs. We want to have our own economic security, and that's the sort of policies that you're seeing are being adhered to. We're not seeing a change in economic policy towards something that would benefit people. It's just becoming worse and worse as an environment in the UK.
Well, I don't deny that the UK environment might be getting worse, and I'm not even saying that Brexit is good or bad. I'm saying it's being refusing to be against Brexit and even putting your own spin on Brexit is the starting point for any progressive forces in the UK. If you don't begin from there, there's literally nothing else you can do. You can't side with the Labour Party. You can't side with the establishment because they don't have the support of the majority of the UK's people. And bigotry and anti-immigrant sentiment may be widespread in the UK among the UK's people, but you cannot find Sorry, there's a little bug. You cannot find refuge in the UK's establishment as a source of protection for immigrants. The only chance immigrants have within the UK for a better future is allying themselves from scratch without the institutions of the status quo, without the establishment, from scratch, some kind of new relationship with the UK's non-immigrant people, who are also the source of this kind of racism. If the material interests of the UK's population can be correctly articulated, then I have no doubt that then a real new dialogue between immigrants and the native population can be worked out, and which will address a lot of the racism and prejudice and bigotry. It's not inevitable that it's going to happen, but
That's very
beginning
hopeful.
beginning from the establishment is a non-starter. It's only going to aggravate the problem.
That's what people like Galloway did, though. That's what my problem is with someone like Galloway, is that he aligned himself with the mainstream sort of like momentum of being Brexit, and like not seeming to care about the implications that it would have. And like that's the problem. You're not starting sort of, and you're not articulating a new discourse of why Brexit is good. You're just saying, okay, whatever the outcomes are, be what it be. Just because this is an end that I agree with, I'm going to put myself in on that camp, and that's not the way to go about it.
But the issue is that those implications are going to be realized whether or not you sober up to this new reality. This is the will of the majority of the UK's people. And siding with the UK's status quo or its establishment is not going to solve the problem. It's going to only aggravate it. So, articulating independently a Brexit position is the only path progressive forces within the UK and people like Galloway have. There's no other alternative.
But that's not what Galloway's done. Do you acknowledge that, or not?
What do you mean that's not what he's done?
That's not the way that he went about sort of being pro Brexit. Like he
I
aligned
think I
himself
think it is. I think Galloway was very firm
with Brexit,
as far as
the
his.
Leave Party.
What's
The Leave
that?
Party. He aligned himself with the Leave Party. So the mainstream sort of right wing faction that was in the Tories and had UKIP backing, and then he even told people to vote for Tories. So that's very problematic, because what you're saying is that what they're doing, even though you might think it's not okay. You're saying it's not that problematic what they're doing. You're sort of mixing sort of the good and the bad. You're blurring the lines.
Well, I don't think there was an alternative to Galloway's position.
So you think that we should tell people to vote Tory and make things worse in the short term, but in the long term, hope that something good will emerge.
If well, it's not that he tells people to vote for Tory. It's that he wants to defend the will of the people of the UK who decided that they wanted to leave the European Union. Now, there's forces that want to go against that popular sovereignty, and that is a very slippery slope, as you can imagine. If they can go against the will of the people in one regard, what kind of precedent does that set for a so-called democratic country?
That's not what I'm arguing here. I agree that if the people have decided on something, then yeah, of course, this is their sovereign right to. What I'm trying to say is that the people might have decided on something that we think is good, but they decided on it for the wrong reasons. That means okay, it might be something good that we agree with, but we're not. It's not going to be a good outcome for us, because what they're voting for, and the people that they're voting for, they're going to have the next 10, 15 years to instate something that we really don't want, and we really don't want a racist Britain. Like that's not something that we want. Britain now is working on this Tory Britain is now working on establishing ties with the likes of America and the likes of Australia. And like how I don't see how that is the better alternative to what we had before. And nor is it sort of creating the environment for us to start articulating a new position. It's just making everyone pushing them to the right, accepting these sort of positions such as immigration is not the best, is not good for the country, accepting these different tendencies, and that's what the political spectrum looks like in the UK. Even talking about like economics the way that Jeremy Corbyn didn't work, because people were so concerned with Brexit that they didn't care about the economic positions and the different sort of policies that Jeremy Corbyn and the other guy, what his name,
Right,
Chancellor,
but
was trying to do.
there's two
So that's why
things.
Jeremy
Yeah,
Corbyn lost the vote.
there's two things. I agree with that. That's the rate things are going at now. The question is that inevitable? I see Galloway as someone whose view isn't that it's inevitable. He's trying to build his own political movement, and that's what he's doing. The second thing is that with regard to the significance of the economic policy, well, that's exactly where Jeremy Corbyn went wrong. He never articulated or expressed the real authentic connection between the 2015 Corbyn of reviving the UK's national industry with a pro-Brexit position, a solid pro-Brexit position. As you said, people don't really care that much about the details. They care about Brexit. If Corbyn articulated a pro-Brexit position, people would not have cared so much about the fact that Corbyn's against racism. Corbyn's against the kind of bigotry. That's not what people find essential or not. So there you would have had an opportunity to have a Brexit that would not lead to the outcome that it has led to now.
You do realize that just because Corbyn, like for Corbyn to be pro Brexit, he can't just say, like, it's very difficult in the UK climate, political climate, to say I'm
I
pro
know, but the
Brexit,
reason
I'm
for that,
pro racist Brexit. Like
the
it's very
reason for that though is that Corbyn's constituents were these what we call the professional managerial left. They were the city left who don't represent the people. So it's the problem was the people who were leading Corbyn's campaign, not the masses on the ground who were decisive for his victory. It was the people who were defining Corbyn's movement culturally, who were a tiny minority, who were an elite compared to the majority of the UK's people. So he
yeah.
didn't do enough to purge those elements out from his party and have an authentic populist rank and file.
Yeah, that is a like that's a fair critique of Corbyn, and that's probably the difficulty of working within Labour Party is that you're not never going to have full control over the party in a way that you can state a sort of a pure sort of political program.
But
You
I
have
think
to.
if Corbyn was more of a populist, he could have drawn the support of the UK's people, and they would have been able to drown out the Labour status quo gets a lot of its power from the fact that it's confined to a specific type of person, the more privileged type of elitist type of people in the cities. If Corbyn made an appeal to the people, I think he could have taken control of the Labour Party, which with much more power, and could have used this power to leverage against them. I know that it's not entirely democratic and that there's institutional power in the Labour Party that can't be contested just based on popularity alone, but it sure as hell could be a huge source of pressure to put on them.
I think we're getting like the thing with Corbyn is, like you said, the institutional sort of limitations on the Labour Party. He'll never be able to. I think the sort of the populist like angle. I don't think it would be that much successful. I think he's already like what he tried to do. Appealing to the people in the UK is very difficult because you can't appeal. You when you appeal to them, you have to speak something that resonates with them. And what resonates with a lot most of the people that were pro Brexit is not sort of left wing economic political
It could
beliefs.
be.
It's right wing racism.
No, but that's just because the leftists wrote those people off. If leftists articulated a left wing populism, why wouldn't those people be more drawn to something that actually represents their real economic interests in the first place? I think for Labor to be a true working class party would be much more appealing. I don't think people are inherently racist or bigoted. I think racism and bigotry is a type of signifier, if you will, that just allows people to distinguish themselves from their class, people who are of other classes. Like, for example, liberal, or we call them liberals in America, more kind of enlightened and progressive people, they hate those people because they're elitist. So oftentimes racism becomes popular because it's a way to distinguish these working class people from the elites. Now, obviously, it's not a good way, in my view, but it's not because they're inherently racist or inherently bigoted. I don't think that.
No, it's not about that. It's that the political climate at that time was not what that like. I think it needs a lot of grassroots effort and a lot of sort of structures built in the community for you to be able to resonate with people in the way that we want. Right? It
I
doesn't
think
just
I
take
think a left wing populist position was very possible for Corbyn at the time. When the decisive time came to make a decision about Brexit, I think Corbyn should have immediately leaned with the pro Brexit crowd because it's all about class. Who is the class base of the people who were pro Remain? Were they the English working class? They weren't. Well, if Corbyn is a champion of the working class and old labor, which is what he which is what he fashioned himself as from the very beginning, he should have taken the pro-Brexit position.
I think that's taking a lot of the context out of what the UK was really like. To take a pro-Brexit position would have damaged Corbyn a lot more, and I think
It would have damaged him in a few ways. I'll name them, right? It would have damaged him insofar as he's popular among metropolitan leftists, right? Privileged, more urban or socialized leftists, right? Those type of educated people and those people. It would have gotten him in trouble from the media. But my view is that all of those things are downstream from the people. They're the only reason these leftists even exist is because ultimately everything is everything is downstream from the people. So if Corbyn took a populistic position, that would have been a source of power for alternative cultural and media, whatever forces to help him against those people who would have went after him. But the worst thing of all is that the climate was already bad for Corbyn. They were already they did everything they could to destroy Corbyn already. I mean, him doing this wouldn't have made all the difference in the world. I don't think it would have made a difference at all, to be honest.
I don't think it would have. But that's what I'm trying to say is that even if he had, I don't think he would have benefited. I think the program you would have to be on to articulate a pro-Brexit that would resonate enough with people in the UK in 2015 and onwards is going to be a sort of a very right-wing Brexit and not something.
Why?
You might be able to bring in left-wing economics into it, but at the end of the day, what resonates with people is what the Tories are saying right now, and that would be the only way to see
But why would it have to be inherently right wing? Why couldn't it be a left? There is such a thing as a left wing populism. Why couldn't it?
You can, but I'm saying it won't be popular. It won't resonate with the people because that's
Why
not what the
not?
people are looking for. That's not what they're looking for. They're looking for a very specific understanding of the problems in the
But
UK.
how do you know? What if that understanding is the only one that's been made available to them?
Well, yeah, that's a problem. But then you would like for that problem to be like solved, you'd have to go back a lot of years, and you can't just say, "I'll start today to articulate a new problem when the election is next year." Like that's not how you would see success in an election.
I don't see how you would have to take a right wing position just because for years there has been a right wing sentiment. I mean, I don't see why that's relevant. I think people take sides based on antagonisms and contradictions. If Corbyn were to appeal to the UK's people, he would have initiated a conflict with the media, with all those other people, similar to the one he already was embroiled in, except in the one he was embroiled in, he had no popular support, and he didn't even make an attempt to reach out to the necessary base that he could have rallied behind to combat the establishment that was going after him. If they witnessed that conflict, people would start taking sides. It's all about these conflicts and these antagonisms and these contradictions. That's what all of this rhetoric is really about. The whole thing about racism isn't just that people are racist and they're convinced racist and it's going to take years and years to convince them otherwise. It's that they do racist shit, the media reacts, and then people start to take a side. And yeah, it's about narratives. People start to take a side based on the antagonism. So Corbyn could have began and initiated a new antagonism.
And that being?
That being a pro-national sovereignty, pro-national industry, old labor position, which can be a little bit culturally conservative, that really resonates with the sentiments of the UK's working classes as opposed to the cities. Now, there's an example of this that's very recent. In Peru, Castillo won precisely on that basis. So I don't see why it would have been impossible for Corbyn to pursue precisely that. Because if you remember, Corbyn had pretty good prospects starting out in 2015. He had a very powerful position, and people were pretty open to Corbyn because the old labor position, you have to remember, old labor is a very powerful position to take in the UK because the UK's working classes were historically aligned with labor. So there's a tradition there, right? So someone who's bringing back old labor is really going to resonate with people.
Yeah, and I agree with that. But I think that what, there was a few points you said. I'm trying to remember them now. Uh, the thing is, I don't know the Castillo context too much, but from the UK context, I just don't think that it would have been that quick of a position to articulate in the time that he had. I think if you look at Corbyn's popularity, the only reason it got worse and worse for him was because of Brexit. And
Yeah, but that's because he didn't take a decisive stance on Brexit when the time came to. He kind of
I
he
don't think
flip flopped because he was afraid of his current main constituents, which were not the working class, but he didn't recognize that all power comes from the people. It doesn't come from the people who appear to be behind you. It comes from the people. It doesn't come from what the media is telling you about reality. It comes from the actual reality. And he underestimated that so profoundly, and he paid a very dear price for it.
What do you think about the Scottish referendum then?
Um, which the one that already happened or the proposed new one?
I think like both the idea of Scottish independence.
From my understanding, Scottish independence was not led by the actual national base of Scotland, but by the liberal elites of Scotland who saw Scotland as a way out of the Brexit conundrum. Scotland was basically, the Scottish independence movement was basically led by the Remainers in Scotland, and it was a form of trying to resist um, Brexit. That's to the
The
extent of my understanding, from what
Scottish
I've been told by people from Scotland.
Scottish independence, I think, has been like here much longer
No,
than.
no, I know. In general, yes, there's a real Scottish independence reality. Oh, you know what? You're right. The first render. Okay, I got it wrong. The first referendum for Scottish independence was different from the calls to renew the referendum again. The first one was not related to Brexit. And I don't know too much about that one. I think at the time I was pro Scottish independence at the time, especially for geopolitical reasons.
So you're saying at the time, so right, you're not
But
anything
the
longer.
meaning of Scottish independence after Brexit changed. When people called for a new referendum, the meaning changed.
But don't you think that the same way you're arguing that Brexit can have a good or like the material interest of Brexit can be met through Brexit, no matter what the meaning of it is? Scottish independence can be understood the same way, no? Or
No,
would
I
you say?
agree. I think I definitely am for Scottish independence, but we have to contextualize the meaning of Scottish independence after Brexit. But in general, I think Brexit provides an opportunity for a type of national awakening for many of the UK's constituent countries, like
Would you not say
Northern
there's a better
Ireland.
opportunity through a Scottish independence followed by an Irish reunion?
Yeah, of course.
So
To me,
that's when.
Brexit is the beginning of a domino effect, possible domino effect, where first Brexit, then Scotland can leave the UK, then Ireland can leave, and then maybe
Then,
they can renegotiate some kind of union on a free and equal basis. Maybe I don't know, but as it stood with the EU, there's no chance, um, in my view.
well, the way I see it is, if we're looking at the long term, having a being a pro Scottish independence now is going to result in what we're looking for much quicker than the Brexit and the type of
But I don't
independent.
think it's going to happen. I agree with Galloway. If you hold another Scottish referendum now, they're going to strike it down. Uh,
People
so it's
strike.
just a distraction and a waste of time.
You think the people will strike it down?
I think this if there was a Scottish referendum, I think they would not vote to leave. Yeah.
I think there's a much more popularity with Scottish. Two reasons. One, it was already very close before Brexit, but two, Scotland was very pro staying in the EU. 70% of Scottish voted to stay in the EU. So I think that would have pushed any sort of uncertainty in that away. So I think a Scottish independence soon is definitely something that we should look for. and it's very likely that it will pass. And that's why the UK is the Tory party especially, is very keen to not make sure to give any opportunity to that happening.
I don't know.
But
I would have to look at like polling data and stuff.
yeah,
More
sure.
Scots voted for Leave than voted for SNP. That's what someone is telling me right now. Um,
But most
so
Scots voted for Remain by a much bigger distance, and that's what the SNP is campaigning on. So 30% compared to 70%.
I don't know. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. But
I think
regardless,
when it comes to
Galloway is thinks it's a waste of time because he as a Scottish person himself doesn't believe the Scottish people want to leave right now.
but I don't think we should take everything from Galloway. That's what all I was trying to
No, I'm
say.
saying,
I
but
don't.
that's the basis of his opposition to Scottish independence. If Galloway found out that the overwhelming majority of Scottish people want to leave, maybe his view would differ. But the issue is that the referendum already happened. So what basis is there for doing another referendum?
The basis that people want it. Like it's
But
like
they
I'll give
already
you
had a referendum.
the recent national election in Scotland happened 2 months ago, and the main parties that campaigned for a second referendum were voted in by like a majority. The Greens and the SNP were the ones that got the most seats, and their main thing was India F2 having a second referendum. So that means people will vote on that platform. I think people do want it. It's clear that this is what many people at least want to happen, is that they want a second referendum. I don't think it's fair to give Galloway sort of
If Scotland
his
wants
analysis.
a referendum, I'm not going to get in the way of it, and I doubt Galloway has the ability to get in the way with it. So I don't see what the issue is. If a referendum is inevitable, I'm not going to be shedding tears over it.
The issue is someone like Galloway is given such high regard when I think he has very questionable decisions
But
and
how has his decision gotten in the way of the Scottish people's?
not getting in the way. It's like it confuses things, right? When we say that Galloway has clear good policies, but then he goes and tells people to vote for Tory, and he goes and stands against Scottish independence. Doesn't that make us think, well, if we know that you're so good in certain stances, then what does that mean for these other stances? It's
I
people
don't know what
so
you mean. I think Galloway. There's different things going on, right? I don't think Galloway is focusing the majority of his effort, or even a significant part of his effort, against Scottish independence.
his significant part of his effort is getting back into the British Parliament, which he failed at last week. But
But
what I'm trying to say is,
so I don't. I'm not too up to date. Did Galloway join the Labour Party?
no, he ran with the Workers' Party and he lost a by-election, which is an election for one seat in Parliament.
Didn't he
Uh,
rejoin the Labour Party?
he didn't rejoin the Labour Party. No, he
Okay,
got
okay,
kicked
no,
out
no. He was in the Labour Party, but he got kicked
in
out.
2006.
Yeah. Okay, got you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but he's done a lot of weird things, and I think people hold him in high regard for certain stances, which may be good and we may agree with. But in other stances, he sort of falls short, and I think we shouldn't hold someone like him.
But which stance do you think he falls short on?
So the ones that we've talked about, the one including Brexit, the one including the Scottish independence, and also as an Iraqi, his stance in the 90s when it was very pro Saddam Hussein is
I
also
don't think he
problematic.
was pro Saddam. I think he was anti-intervention. I think this is a rewriting of his record.
So from the videos that I've watched, when he walks in and calls him Your Excellency, and he
Well, this
gives
is
him
a
a
formality. He's meeting with the head of state.
there's ways to go about being anti-war in Iraq. I think the position that he held towards Saddam Hussein is, and this is a problem with many leftists, is they don't know about what Saddam's
But
done.
it's a false. It seems like a falsification by the media. I've never. Galloway has completely denied ever being "quote unquote" pro Saddam. He has been against war in Iraq. I mean,
That's a good position,
the
but
record's very clear.
I don't think so, because when he goes and meets with Saddam Hussein and his
Yeah.
sons, and he sort of
Do you know
gives
why
them
he
that.
met with Saddam and the government?
I don't know
He
why he
didn't
met.
just do it to be friendly. He met with them to get to the bottom of all of the allegations. I mean, yeah, he was in front of where? He was in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. He was in front of Congress, and he told the story. He went and met with Saddam.
There's a video of him meeting him. You know, have you seen that?
Yeah, I know they met, but why did they meet? Did they meet to just be friends?
No, I don't know why he met.
He met with Saddam to get the record straight
All right, I
about.
just want to clarify something. I'm
Yeah.
not a liberal. As an Iraqi, I've.
Well, give me one moment. I'd have to wash my hands after I ate. Give me one moment.
All right, go on. I'll just talk to your chat. Chat. I'm not a liberal. What you guys need to realize about Saddam Hussein is that he slaughtered and butchered millions of Iraqis, and he was actually supported by America to get into Iraq. The CIA supported a coup in 1963 against the rule of Abdul Karim Qasim, and Saddam Hussein and the Ba'ath Party was supported by the CIA to get into Iraq and to rule Iraq. In the 1980s, the war against Iran, Saddam Hussein was supported by it. Saddam Hussein was supported by Americans, and anyone who thinks that Saddam Hussein is anti-imperialist or anti-America needs to look at his full history before coming to terms that he's got sort of a good position and someone to support. And that's not even talking about all the crimes that Saddam had on his own people. So I think people need to realize that Saddam Hussein isn't someone to be proud of or someone to support or to call based or anything like that. Um, but whatever he's done, you have to be anti-war in Iraq, and that's a clear position to hold. But what I'm trying to say when it came to George Galloway is he seemed like he disregarded Saddam's crimes. And I'm not saying, oh, I want him to go to the British media and talk about the crimes and sort of give leverage to imperialist policies on Iraq. But there's a way to go about these things that maybe can look less uh, uh, favorable towards someone like Saddam Hussein.
Um.
That's my speech over.
So, I mean, you realize that Galloway met with Saddam because there were existing sanctions against Iraq,
Yeah.
which were hurting the Iraqi people, and Galloway's mission was to help put an end to those sanctions.
If that's his mission, then that's good. I think there's a general tendency amongst people that are anti-imperialist to see Saddam as someone that is an
Sure. I
anti-imperialist
think
figure.
I think this is I am never someone who says Saddam is based. I don't even say Bashar al-Assad is based. I think this is something that's up to the judgment of the Iraqi and the Syrian people, and I prefer not to intervene with my judgment.
I'm Iraqi myself.
What's that?
I'm Iraqi
No, no,
myself, so
I heard you. I respect your position. I don't take issue with your position. I respect. I mean, I grew up in a place with many Iraqi immigrants who fled the war and also fled Saddam. So I respect your position. But it's up to the Iraqi people. It's not for me to decide.
fair, fair enough. So it's been a good talk. You do good content, by the way. I just saw you released a new YouTube video, so I'll be go watching that.
Okay, I
Uh,
appreciate it. It was a good talk.
yeah. See you soon, maybe, huh? Another debate.
Okay, for sure. See you.
Take care. Bye bye.